Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
I'm with Mr. Shyam Saran, former Foreign Secretary, but not just a Foreign Secretary, but an expert in China. He's served in China for several years, has been in charge of the China desk in the Ministry of External Affairs, speaks Mandarin fluently. Mr. Saran, welcome to The Print. This is an odd time in China. There's been so much happening in the world. Donald Trump, the American president, has been going hammer and tongs at the Chinese. Xi Jinping has not said that much, but according to the news coming out of China, the Vice Minister for Public Security, Sun Lijun, has just less than 24 hours ago been taken for investigation of severe violation of discipline and law. What do you make of it?
My first reaction is that obviously this is indicative of some inner turmoil taking place within the party, which has been apparent for some time since the COVID crisis broke out. If you recall, there has been an article by one of the former princelings, in fact using rather abusive language about Xi Jinping, saying that he is like a emperor with no clothes.
You're talking about Ran Zhiqiang.
Okay. And he has been, as you know, detained as a result. But what is interesting
and one more person has been detained, and who is a professor.
He's a professor from the Beijing University, if I'm not mistaken.
Tsinghua University. And his name is Xu Changrun.
Yes,
I'm sorry, my pronunciation isn't...
That's right. But more important is the article saying that he's an emperor with no clothes, because in China, social media is very tightly controlled. And in fact, anything which can be even remotely critical of the leadership is almost immediately removed. It is rather strange that something which is so abusive and even condemnatory of the top leader of China should have been allowed to circulate for some time and become, in a sense, viral, to use.
So just to tell our viewers, this was an article which he accused Xi Jinping
of mishandling the
COVID crisis
for centralizing all authority and power in his own hands, and not being able to take the right decisions at the right time.
And in fact, he used this phrase where he said, not only is that the emperor has no clothes, but that he's standing naked.
That's right.
Like a clown.
These
are very strong words.
Very strong words. And so to me, it seems somewhat odd that we have come to hear about it precisely because it was allowed to circulate in the social media for some time.
Well, in the bad old days, you won't hear about it?
Well, as you are aware, social media is very tightly controlled, and if you recall, there was this phrase which was used for him, Winnie the Pooh, you know, and so the censors in China, anything which suggested this kind of terminology
for Xi
Jinping, or even had an image of Winnie the Pooh, almost instantly would be removed. So when you have that kind of a system in place, very, very strict censorship in place, it is somewhat unusual that an abusive article like this should have been allowed to circulate, even though it was taken off from the social media, but not before a very large number of Chinese, but also a very large number of foreigners got to read it. So to me, it seems that there is some inner party turmoil taking place. As you know, there was a certain scapegoating of the Hubei party leadership. The Wuhan mayor, for example.
Which is the epicenter of the outbreak.
That's right. And they were removed to take the rap for not having taken immediate action.
But why is that interesting?
But before they were removed, there was a report, in fact, saying that the mayor of Wuhan acknowledged that immediate action was not taken, but he also said that immediate action was not taken because they were waiting for a central directive.
Yes. For central directive to do what?
To take action. Because as you recall,
explain that.
We know that, for example, a central
So at the end of December, China announces that there is this coronavirus epidemic that they cannot control, and this is on the 31st of December. And it's been about 3 or 4 months since.
Yes, but what I'm saying is that when it grew, and when you had the local doctors, amongst their own sort of WhatsApp group or the equivalent.
The whistleblowers, one Dr. Lee,
that's
who
right,
unfortunately
that's right.
died later.
They were reprimanded and in fact asked to take back, what they had said. And it was only later that, he was in a sense exonerated.
Right.
But what I'm trying to point out to is that even though there was a recognition, awareness that there was this crisis which had erupted in Wuhan, the local leadership did not take action because it was awaiting instructions from the central government. This was said by the mayor himself when he was accused of it. But obviously, to cover up for whatever may have been the delay in taking action by the central government, you had both the governor of Hubei province as well as the mayor removed. But there obviously has been some kind of a delay in the central leadership reacting, which is why several days later, there was a report put out that, it was actually quite early on, around the 7th of January or something, that Xi Jinping had given actually instructions.
That's right.
But what those instructions were,
nobody knew.
And if they were instructions from right at the senior level of the leadership, why were they not acted upon if they were in fact instructions to lock down the place? So there are several questions which are floating around, and this latest incident would seem to indicate that there is some inner party, kind of turmoil which is taking place, and the central leadership, particularly Xi Jinping's position, I wouldn't say that his position has become shaky, but obviously there is more criticism floating around than perhaps you and I are aware of.
So in a system like this, can his position become shaky? After all, he is the great leader. He has now said that he can be the president of the country, the general secretary of the party forever.
Even if there is some threat,
yeah.
I would imagine that this may appear later. Why? Because currently, as we can see, China is under sort of attack, particularly by the United States of America. There have been questions raised even by other countries. Maybe you have seen the interview, very fine interview, which has been given by President Macron of France to the Financial Times, in which he has raised questions about China's role in this crisis. So at the time when there is this kind of pressure building up on China internationally, it is very unlikely that this would lead to a change in the leadership at this point, because whenever something like this happens, there is always a kind of a tendency of coming together, of not sort of weakening the leadership, but in fact strengthening the leadership. But perhaps for the future, when this is all over, perhaps there may be some questions being raised again. But there is no doubt in my mind that this crisis has led to a questioning of Xi Jinping's leadership, and that there is a certain nervousness in the relationship, that this dissent should not be allowed to build up, and which is why you see actions of the kind that have been taken.
So let me ask you, Mr. Saran, do you think China is responsible for this pandemic, not just that the virus escaped from Wuhan, but in the manner of its handling, that it was allowed to become a pandemic?
Well, I certainly believe that, in dealing with issues of this kind, crises of this kind, democracies are better placed for the simple reason that there is free flow of information. That, whatever may be happening, even if it is negative, it usually surfaces quite early. And therefore, I believe that if those democratic processes had been in place in China, it is unlikely that the kind of delay which we saw or the kind of sort of disconnect between the central leadership and the state
But the
leadership.
delay was only for a few weeks. So how
Yes,
does
but those few weeks were absolutely critical.
Because December 31,
See, I mean,
they announced it.
it is during that particular period that from Wuhan itself, huge numbers of travelers went abroad because this was the beginning of the Spring Festival.
Right.
So not only was there movement from Hubei to other parts of China, but much more importantly, there were thousands and thousands of people from infected areas who were traveling abroad.
But perhaps they didn't know what was happening.
I grant that they did not know, that it was not done deliberately to infect people. But what I am saying is that, in a sense, there is a certain original sense
Right.
that when prompt action should have been taken, taking into account the fact that a similar kind of a situation had arisen with the SARS epidemic in 2003. Okay, so there should have been a realization that something like this could become a very serious crisis. So the delay, which may not have been deliberate, which may not have been intentional, but the fact is that because of the kind of system that China has, the information about this, the warning about this did not come out as quickly as it should.
Could have.
Yes.
But then you're asking for a motherhood and apple pie kind of situation. The
no.
Chinese Communist Party is
No.
a closed and a very concentrated power.
As Macron said, okay, we have to respect what the Chinese system is, and we are not saying that the Chinese system should be changed. It is their choice, it is the choice of the people of China. But there is no doubt that it is as a result of a certain kind of system in place that the world did not get an alert, a warning as quickly as it should have. Given the implications of a pandemic like this, it is not that people did not know that a pandemic like this can, sweep across the world. We have had cases like that before. So this was a very serious matter. Yes, I think it is not correct to then blame China, in the manner, for example, that is being said, that it may have escaped from some laboratory.
But do you think it escaped from a lab?
There is no evidence.
Or from a wet
there is
market
no evidence.
in
There are,
Wuhan?
the wet market, the Chinese themselves closed it immediately.
Right.
So
And that particular
from
market
their
hasn't opened
actions,
yet.
from their actions itself, it appears that they themselves realized that this could have been the source of the infection.
Yeah.
And we have reason to believe that this is in fact the source, because the wet market not only had chicken and meat
Right,
that
but
you
other
consume, but you had exotic wild animals
Like
and
what?
like bats, like pangolins.
Have you been to a wet market in China?
Yes,
Mr.
well,
Sir?
I have not been in China, but I have seen a wet market in Taiwan, for example, and it is incredible how
What
many.
is a wet market?
No, the wet market is where animals are slaughtered and their meat is sold, and there is a lot of waste, for example, which just lies around, and all this is being done while there is also a sale of live wild animals taking place, or sometimes those wild animals themselves are being slaughtered for very exotic restaurants. So
Like what? Like what kind of? I mean,
you have snakes, you have bats, you have, as I said, pangolins.
They eat them.
Yes, yeah, they're supposed to be exotic meat. Civet cats. If you remember, with the SARS epidemic in 2003, the immediate carrier was civet cats, which are also used as food in places like Guangzhou, for example. So, okay, one should not, make too much of the
species from a bat.
There have been cases in the past where there has been a transfer of viruses from wild species to humans.
Right.
And because humans do not have the immune sort of system to be able to deal with these kind of strange viruses, that is why you have pandemics until you discover
a vaccine or something.
Yeah.
So in this particular case, we don't know whether it escaped from a lab.
No,
Although there is a lot of talk that the Wuhan Institute of Virology,
Yes,
for example,
I've seen that story, but as I said, there is as yet no evidence.
where a lab technician is supposed to have infected his girlfriend. There are all these American
there are all
stories
kinds
that
of,
are leaking.
in this kind of situation, all kinds of stories will be floating around, all
Right.
kinds of rumors will be floating around. I think we should stay away from that
Sure.
and stay with facts.
Yes. But
And
tell me, would you call it the Wuhan virus or the Chinese virus?
Well, I believe that we should accept the fact that this originated from China. We should accept the fact that China itself has done a remarkable job using all the instruments of state power to try and contain the virus, and it seems to have been largely successful in
Right.
that exercise. These are facts.
And that's
We
a good
should
thing about the
accept.
Chinese Communist Party, which, however, we may criticize it as totalitarian or dictatorial, but at least
Well, the
it's able
kind
to
of
contain
measures,
them.
the kind of
Measures
very,
itself.
very drastic measures which were taken by China in locking down not only Wuhan but also locking down the whole of Hubei province, this would be somewhat difficult to imagine in a democratic country. I mean, you see, what
India has
is-
been locked down for the last 3.5 weeks. We're 1.2 million
yes,
people.
but the fact is that in India we have had to treat people with some degree of shall I say compassion, if nothing.
And it's
else.
a voluntary lockdown at the end of the day.
And there has been a lot of look at the amount of information which is coming out
Yeah.
in India in terms of what is happening in different localities. This to me is also good for the government because it has a better idea of what is the challenge it is up against.
Right.
So I think on balance, yes, the Chinese system was successful so far in containing the infection, and it seems to be now opening up gradually. I doubt whether something like this would be possible in other countries, except that even democratic countries like, for example, Taiwan or South Korea, for example, have actually done a remarkable job in containing the
South Korea has been amazing.
without having to put in place the kind of very, very drastic measures that China.
So what do you make of the fact that Wuhan just a couple of days ago revised its death toll upwards by just
Well, I
50%?
do not make too much of it because, in a dynamic situation like this, it is possible that large numbers of people who died may not have been originally identified as having had COVID infection. And now that is surfacing. So even in our case, there is some revision, some, discrepancy in the figures that are coming out. So I don't see that as a very important thing. But what I do see as something which is perhaps not quite a positive angle on China's reaction is, in a sense, trying to somehow go on a publicity overdrive
Yeah.
to somehow mask that original, lapse by focusing attention on the superiority of the Chinese political system in being able to take the kind of drastic measures that it was able to, compare it with what's happening in, say, the United States of America or what may be happening in Europe.
What does that mean? What does that signify to you? This overdrive.
We are superior. I mean, as simple as that, when we are looking at political systems, China's political system is superior to what we see in other democracies.
But how is that being superior when you haven't been able to contain a virus?
This is precisely
Early
what
on
I'm
at
saying,
least.
that what they are trying to say, yes, we may have had this originating from China, but in fact, the prompt action, thanks to the prompt action which we took, because of the lockdown, the rest of the world was given, time to prepare for this. And now that China has been able to be successful in controlling this epidemic, it is able to assist other countries.
Right.
And there is a lot of publicity about, China sending medical devices and China sending all kinds of, material, including masks as well as ventilators to a number of other countries. And each time there is some consignment going, there is a huge, play about it in the media,
Yeah.
even encouraging the recipient states to put up banners saying thank you Xi Jinping for your generosity. This is beginning to also cause a little bit of resentment. The manner in which they are trying to sort of present themselves as a country which is providing global public goods to the rest of the world. See how generous we are. Mainly, this is being done to cover up the fact that
There was an original sin.
it started from there, and there is no doubt that there is. If you look at Chinese media reports, there is no doubt that there is an effort to try and project that in a crisis like this, you see how efficient and how effective a political system like China's is, while you see that most democracies are actually flawed.
So 3 questions from here. One is the Chinese, the India hasn't said very much about China, except for a couple of days ago when the Ministry of Commerce put out guidelines where it did not name China, but said that investments from neighboring countries, and South Asian countries are hardly going to invest that much in India because their GDPs are much lower, but that countries cannot invest in India without clearance right from the top.
I think it is probably a good cautionary step, because we have seen in past crises that when assets, particularly industrial assets, business assets, go down in value because of the crisis itself, they become targets for acquisitions because their valuations are so cheap. And I think what we have done is actually taking the cue from what is happening in the United States and what is happening in Europe, particularly,
Right.
where similar kind of cautionary steps have been taken to ensure that assets which are at bargain values in a sense do not get snapped up by Chinese companies, and there is no predatory kind of behavior on the part of China. So I think we have, as I said, we have taken the cue from them, and perhaps it is a good cautionary step. Don't forget that in a sense China is already very well entrenched in some areas in India. Like if you take the digital space, actually China is already a very major player. So if you take, for example, the mobile market, Oppo or Xiaomi, they are very major actors in the Indian consumer market.
Right.
Or if you take, for example, Paytm. Paytm, for example, is very much funded by Alibaba, Alipay as it is called.
Yeah.
Then you have the company called ByteDance, which owns TikTok, which is one of the most popular, social media platforms in India. So in the digital space, China is already quite well placed. I think there is a certain awareness that if we do not take some cautionary steps, there would be a much more sort of opening available for China to establish themselves as a very major player.
So you said that we took this cue from the Americans, and we've seen Donald Trump over the last several weeks.
Well, not just America. I said I think
Europe
perhaps more the Europeans, because they were very much open to Chinese investment.
Yeah, that's right. And now they're pulling back.
Unlike the United States, because the United States had already taken action before to have some kind of a clearance system for Chinese investment into the United States. But Europe was far more open.
But what do you make of Donald Trump in the last few weeks has just gone hammer and tongs at the Chinese?
I think this is with an eye on the next elections.
Purely to do with that?
I think it has a great deal to do with that. Because don't forget that just a couple of weeks ago, he was praising China.
Exactly. By the
He
end
had
of
had a telephonic chat with Xi Jinping, and he said, I had a very good chat and I'm very impressed with what China is doing. This kind of a change in tone, I believe it is perhaps related to the forthcoming elections, or also to deflect attention from the fact that because of either lack of decision making or because wrong decisions were taken, the pandemic now finds the United States of America as
epicenter.
one of the epicenters.
Because more than 40,000
Right,
people have died.
and many more are likely to die as a result of the pandemic. So I think what is happening is a deflection from but very serious situation within the United States itself. But secondly, with the elections coming, this could be something which will certainly, as far as his constituency is concerned, mobilize opinion in favor of.
But Trump is also attacking the WHO and saying that because it's been funded by China as well, and that WHO chief he's openly accusing him of favoring China by not declaring the pandemic in time.
Well, I don't know how much influence China had on the WHO leadership. The fact is that if you remember, is there sort of animal to human transmission? The original, indication from the WHO was that this may not be the case, although they revised it soon enough. The second issue is that when countries were putting restrictions on travel from China into their countries, the WHO Director General was saying, these travel curbs are not really called
And he
for.
visited China himself.
Yes, of
WHO
course,
chief.
which is okay.
What do you make of it? I'm sure the WHO
there
is
no
also a
doubt.
political organization.
See, most UN organizations today are very much influenced by what is known as project aid, bilateral kind of financial arrangements, than by the subscription budget, backed by subscriptions. The subscriptions, for example, which the WHO is able to get, which could be its general budget from which it can finance various activities, is barely enough for its establishment expenses.
Right.
So as far as its activities are concerned, willy-nilly it is dependent upon the handouts which are given by various countries. And yes, it is true that China has been a major source of finance. So don't be surprised if countries which are, sort of have the purse strings will also have influence. So
China would have used the WHO, do you think?
I'm certain that China would have had some influence on issues which I mentioned, whether or not a sort of a more serious alert should have been issued right in the beginning, whether the travel curbs which were instituted by countries, that the WHO should have argued that no, these are not necessary. Now, in retrospect, it seems that these were not perhaps correct decisions. But the bottom line is that why is the WHO not able to play a fully independent role? Why is the WHO starved of resources to do the kind of things it is mandated to do? Is because of member countries. Because member countries are not giving enough resources to the WHO. Member countries would rather, put money bilaterally and have influence on what the WHO is doing, rather than trust the organization.
But would you say that the WHO has been compromised by the Chinese?
No, I wouldn't say compromised in the sense that, if there was no WHO, you would need a WHO.
Right.
That is the only international platform that you have for bringing countries together for any kind of a coordinated response to a health pandemic like this. So the WHO is necessary. The WHO is a very critical organization. The lessons that we are learning from this is, please give the WHO the resources that it needs to be able to fulfill its mandate.
So if China gives these resources, then it's naturally...
Well, the resources that I'm talking about are in terms of member contributions.
Yes. So
rather than project basis. Look,
Sure.
I give you $100 million, but you must spend this $100 million only for my favored projects or only in my favored countries.
But I'm sure most countries do that. The Americans would do it.
That's what I said.
Would do it.
That's
and I'm sure the Chinese are now doing
That's precisely what I said, that what is happening with the WHO is also what you see happening with a large number of other UN organizations, including the United Nations itself.
Yeah.
You see, the United Nations budget, administrative budget, can barely be met by the contributions by member countries. country.
But your own
Almost all its activities, UN's activities, are all project based.
But Mr. Saran, our own Foreign Minister, Mr. Jaishankar, has said not so recently that the UN system in itself, or that the UN is increasingly irrelevant.
Who has made it irrelevant? Point is that the United Nations is not an entity which is divorced from its members. It can only do what its members allow it to do. It's not an independent actor in that sense.
No, but would a pandemic like this or a crisis like this tell you that you should be far more invested in the UN or not?
What the pandemic is showing is something that we have been aware for some time, that most of the challenges that countries are facing and will face in the future are mostly global challenges. These are cross-cutting challenges. These are challenges which no country, no matter how powerful, can deal with it by itself. So national solutions are not possible to these kind of global challenges. Therefore, you need more multilateralism. You need more empowered international organizations to help you deal with these kind of challenges rather than to weaken them. It is correct to complain about their current maybe dysfunctionality.
Right.
But the lesson to be learned is not to say remove them, but they actually take the action that you need to reform them, to be able to give them the resources that they need and make them more efficient governance institutions.
So let me bring you back to the India-China relationship. The fact that apart from this directive by the Ministry of Commerce, India has said nothing at all about this pandemic. They haven't. What do you make of India's silence?
Why should we join in the chorus of condemnation of China? As I said, we are aware of the facts which we discussed earlier. Even if this began in China, I have no doubt in my mind that the answer to this lies in countries being able to work together, particularly major countries being able to work together. So in that sense, the sharpening confrontation between the United States and China is not good news. Because you need countries, particularly as I said, after all, China is the second largest economy in the world.
But why would you hesitate to point a finger on China? Because everywhere you see...
I think we have the fact that we took very early action to prevent traffic from China into India, despite the fact that the Chinese were not very happy about it. Right. I think we have also been somewhat beholden to China, that a number of items which are in short supply, like ventilators or protective equipment, these the Chinese have supplied us in some significant quantities. So I think we should also be should acknowledge the support that we have received from China, and will probably need more in the future. So I think it is
back of your mind.
It is not necessary at the governmental level to join this chorus of led by President Trump of condemning China or raising issues about whether it came out from a Institute of Virology or not. I don't think that is the right way to go about this. As I said, at this particular point of time, for India or for any other country to be able to deal with this kind of challenge requires that we should be able to work together. And we need a kind of an international platform where we can pull together the resources. And I'm not only talking about resources in terms of money, but also resources in terms of minds. Whether or not we are able to have the best scientists, for example, in the world being able to come together
and work
together. Right now, different countries are sort of working in their own national at the national level.
But at the back of your mind, are you not concerned that in the public domain, at least, say in the Security Council, the Chinese talk about Kashmir, they continue to defy attempts to censure Masood Azhar. They continue to work very closely with Pakistan, who, as you know, is not still.
So what is new about that? They have been working with Pakistan for years.
Right.
This is a certain...
but you're concerned about all these issues.
I don't think we can get away from the fact. I have pointed this before and I will repeat it again. that in essence, India-China relations are adversarial in character. That is, we have to accept that there are a number of issues on which there are serious divergences of views,
Including the border.
including the border. However, we also have to contend with the fact that in managing the relationship with China, we should be able to work on at least those issues where there is some commonality of interest. And this is the kind of strategy which we have followed for quite some time, that yes, there are issues on which we may have to confront China because our vital interests are being threatened.
Like in Doklam.
Like in Doklam. But we should also recognize that it is worthwhile for both countries to try and keep the relationship in some kind of balance. Which is the reason why some of the summits that have taken place between the Indian leaders and Chinese leaders, even if there has not been any substantive outcome, the fact that these summits have taken place, that there is a certain common commitment to keeping the relationship reasonably positive,
Right.
these are good things in the relationship. So I think we will continue to, in the future also, have this kind of balancing of both, firmness where we require to be firm because our interests are involved, but also being able to work together with China where it is possible for us to work together. Now, this balance may change as a result of situation around us changing.
Right.
But for the present, I would say that I think the approach that we have taken is probably the right one.
Mr. Saran, thank you so much for speaking to the print and explaining all these issues, both in a minute way and in a big picture.
My pleasure. Thank you.
This is Jyoti Malhotra for the print. Please continue to watch our YouTube channel. It's Live in Buzzing.